Good afternoon, you guys. I hope you're having a fantastic day so far. Today I want to talk to you guys about identifying and defining unfamiliar words in a sentence. I want to focus our lesson by looking at this sentence on the board here. I have, the air outside was so frigid that I began to shiver as I opened the door. Does everyone know what the word frigid means? No, kind of cold. Exactly, cold. So the word frigid we know means cold. And I want to challenge you guys today. Let's pretend as if we didn't know what the word frigid meant. How could we determine the definition of the word solely using the information given in the sentence? Are we using a dictionary? Not using a dictionary, but I would say to use the tools within the sentence to figure out what the word means. And I'm going to walk you guys through this process. Just bear with me, and I want you guys to, I think you guys will like it. So first I would look at the word like air and outside. So when I think of air, I think of breathing in, I think of, just fresh air, I think of an oxygen bar, I think of a lot of different things. When I think of the word outside, I think of the sun, I think of airplanes, I think of trees. What do you guys think of when you think of outside?
Animals.
Animals, grass, different things are outside. I think a key component to the understanding the word frigid is the word shiver. So when I think of shiver, I think of action. I think of kind of shimmying, shaking, shimmying, shaking. So and I think of examples in which I would shiver. So for example, when I open the freezer, I shiver. Or when I walk outside during the wintertime and I don't have on a coat, I shiver. Can you guys think of another example when you may shiver?
If you go in the pool and it's really cold.
If you go in a pool and it's cold, you may shiver. Exactly. So let's think of all these different examples. What do they have in common? Opening a refrigerator, walking outside in the wintertime, and jumping into a cold pool. The atmosphere in each example is what?
Cold.
Cold, exactly. Okay. So if we understand the word shiver as an action, as a reaction to an atmosphere that is cold, then we can kind of conclude that the word frigid means cold.
Yeah.
So basically what we just went through was utilizing our context clues. And context clues are words or phrases within a sentence that help us define an unfamiliar word. To simplify the process of utilizing context clues, I've broken it down into steps here, okay? So the steps are to isolate, define, recognize, and replace. When I isolate the word in question, so single it out. So I isolated the word frigid by writing it in a different color. It's kind of separate from the rest of the sentence. And we know we're focusing on this word. The second step is to define familiar words in a sentence. So we define the words air, outside, and shiver. Next step, we didn't really utilize it in this example because we didn't really need to. After the second step, we kind of figured out what frigid meant. But the next step is to recognize how the word may be similar to other words you already know. So we look at the word frigid, and it reminds us of the what? A refrigerator, a fridge, and those things are
cold.
Cold, exactly. So we can that kind of helps us to understand the definition of the word frigid. And lastly, you want to replace the word in question with one you already know, or make an educated guess as to what the word means. So if we say that the definition of the word frigid is cold, we can replace frigid with cold in order to make sure that we have the right understanding. So let's try that. The air outside was so cold that I began to shiver as I opened the door. Think that works?
Yes.
Yeah, that works out, right? Okay.
Yeah, that's cool.
So let's apply these steps that we've learned in utilizing our context clues to another example. The example I have here on the board is the vanilla ice cream is awful, but the chocolate ice cream is extraordinary. So I've already completed the first step for us. I've isolated the word extraordinary by writing it in a different color. Let's go to the next step by defining familiar words in the sentence. Which words do you guys think are pretty pertinent to the sentence in understanding the word extraordinary?
Awful.
Awful, okay, which other word?
But,
okay, awful and but. So what do we know about the word awful?
It's really bad.
Really bad,
like
nasty.
Yeah,
exactly. And especially as it pertains to food, you think of like yuck, you think of nasty. So that's how awful, that's the kind of the definition we give to the word awful. Now what about the word but?
Tushy.
Not tushy, well, there's two reasons why it's not tushy. It's actually, tushy would be like B-U-T-T with two T's, and also in this context, but is more like, it's different. It's a contrast. It's more like a contrast from this part of the sentence to the second part of the sentence, right? Okay, so if we understand that awful is really bad and but is a contrast, then I think we're getting closer and closer to defining what the word extraordinary means. Let's go to the next step. We're going to recognize what words may be similar to the word extraordinary here. Okay, so which words can you guys think of that remind you, or which words does the word extraordinary remind you of? Ordinary, that's one of the words. What's another word?
Extra.
Extra, okay. So we think of extra, we think better, above. When we think of ordinary, we think of average. So we think above average. Which word can we kind of relate to the meaning above average?
Really good.
Really good.
Great.
Great. Even better. Great. So if we think that the word extraordinary means great, we can replace it. We can go to the next step by replacing the word extraordinary with the word great and seeing if it works. So let's try it out. The vanilla ice cream is awful, but the chocolate ice cream is great. I think that works.
Yeah,
I think that works.
That makes perfect sense.
It makes
I got
perfect sense. You get it? You get it? Okay. So that's kind of like a basic definition of using context clues in order to define a word. You guys have any questions? No?
No, I think I got it.
What's versatile mean?